Mm, if anytime you feel that I'm sharing, if I'm not sharing the screen and I'm trying to present something, just ping me in the chat. I'll take care of it. Is my screen visible? Yeah. Okay. Fine. Sure. All right. So let's start today's class. So I have got few shady style slides for today. Right. So welcome to the day two of the Web Dev Bootcamp. And what we are going to cover today is like we are going to discuss about what are a web browser in general and how do they render the websites. So you might have seen like as I said you earlier yesterday itself that any website can be written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we are going to talk about this little bit. But before we dive in there, I want to first discuss about HTML tags and attributes, right? So this is the big thing for today that we are going to discuss today. And last we will discuss about how much of HTML, JS, and CSS are used in the industry, right? If you see HTML and CSS, they are like HTML at least is barely used, so that is the reason why we are not going to spend a lot of time in there. And I'm only going to discuss the tags which are necessary, that are required for you to be known. Most of the tags that the HTML has, you can go to this particular website. W3 Schools has this thing of HTML course, right? And there you have a bunch of tags which are not really used, right? But as a reference, you can use it if you want to make some kiddie project. It is good to know. But in general, we are not going to use a lot of HTML tags and attributes, right? And then because we have discovered a lot of frameworks that we actually use instead of the vanilla HTML tags. Apart from that, CSS, the concepts of CSS are still used. As I said you earlier, also like even today, if you are using some fancy frameworks like Tailwind or Bootstrap, right, and you have Shad CN, two three frameworks for CSS are there, but the concept remains the same. So it is essential for you to know the concepts of the CSS, especially the Flexbox. How do you make the different components in a particular web page? So if you go to this particular web page itself, so you see how this is styled. You have on the top bar, you have multiple components. You have the logo itself, you have the tutorial button, you have the exercise button, and very nicely it is being written, right? You have the scroll bar here. So one page has multiple things. So this is all done using CSS, and the property is usually that we use is display property. And in display itself, you have like a lot of ways to do this thing. So that is the important stuff that you should know. And in CSS itself, you have variety of things. But again, as I said you earlier, we are just focusing on things which are required. I'll also share what are the important things that you can learn on your own. And then JS is obviously, it is like heavily used. It is like 90 to 95% in all these three things, right? And very essential. It also opens up a lot of concepts of yours in general in programming, right? So that is the thing. So let's start with HTML tags and attributes. Even in this HTML tags and attributes, we are going to talk about, as I said you, only two things. One is tags, another is attributes. Tags are, you might have heard about, these are the tags. You have HTML tag, head tag, title tag, all the way down till center tag. Although you have way more tags, but these are, I believe that these are the most essential tags. So if you know these tags, you're good to go, right? You know most of the tags. Out of, let's say there is some specific niche, specific use case, then you can just Google it and learn by yourself. Okay, bhai, acha, this tag is required, so I cannot use this thing. Mostly, if you open any website, this is the most essential tag. That is the div tag. So if I open this website itself, that is slides.com, right? And as I said you earlier, if you want to know the code of this particular website, you can do right click, can go for the inspect tab, and when you inspect, you have the whole HTML code for this particular web page. So you can in fact copy this thing and paste in your VS Code and run it. You'll have almost the same thing, right? So if you see here, the most common tag that you'll see is the div tag, right? You have section tag also, but the most common one that mostly we use is div tag. The reason being, the reason why all these tags have become obsolete is because of CSS only. So the things which which this specific tag, whether it is center or h1 tag, h6 tag, we'll see what all these tags do. But that all can be done using div tag. So you use div tag, and then you apply the CSS properties on top of it to achieve any sort of a functionality or any sort of a styling, right? So let's kick in. We'll start with the basic tag, and then we'll go from there. So the first thing that I want you guys to know is, like, just open your VS Code, right? I'll open my as well. So right, and before even opening the VS Code, I would suggest you just go to your the folder where you want to. You can just create a folder for the web dev workshop. I'm going to create on the desktop, right? I'll say new folder, right? This is the thing, web dev, right? Open this folder, and now what you can do, you can go back to the VS Code. Already a few files were there, so I'll just open the new one. So most likely this is what is being shown to you. Right now, to open any folder in it, what you can do is just open the folder here, or if you don't find something like this, you can also go on the file tab and click on open folder. Right, go to the desktop tab and then click on the web dev folder that you have just created and select on it. So once you do this thing, you already have, that particular folder loaded into your VS Code. Now if you do anything, let's say if I create here a file named as index.html, right? I can create the files using this particular icon. You have a bunch of icons here. You can create new file here, new folder. You can just refresh this whole thing, or you can minimize this thing, right? So if I create here a new file, index.html, right, this file will be created in your folder that you have created, right? Because that is the one that you have opened. So VS Code is in turn creating this particular file in your folder. So it will be particularly the same thing. Hopefully this is done, right? So now let me just open this side by side, so I can take this as the reference of to what to teach. Right. So once I have this particular file, index.html, I'll start writing something. Let's say hello world. Right. Now to open this particular file on the browser, like whatever the code I'm writing in HTML to be rendered on the web page, all you need to do is go to your folder again. I've written something. What did I do till now? I just created a folder, opened in VS Code, I created a file, and then I'm writing something I'm writing, and I want this to be, rendered as an output. So all you have to do is go to your folder back and click on this particular file. Just double click on it, right? And this will open in the web browser. In case if it doesn't open, you can just click on, you can do right click, right? You can do right click, you can do open with, and you can choose any of the browser. For today's class, I'll just suggest you just go with the Google Chrome, because there is something else that we need, which is there only in Google Chrome. I mean, specific to Google Chrome. So it's better to open with a Google Chrome browser, right? Once you open it, you have this thing. So whatever I do here will be rendered there, right? So if I do hit this way, something is written. Right now, if I go down and write something, some gibberish, right, and if I refresh it again, it comes back on the same line. So it doesn't go to the, even though I have started writing the text in the next line, it didn't came in the same line. It did came in the same line where I was expecting to come in the same line. um, yeah, so that is the thing. So to avoid this thing, they have created few tags, and every tag does the same thing. So as I said you earlier, if you go to this particular slide, you have HTML tag, head tag. HTML tag is like, the basic tag. Even though if you don't write it, the browser itself will write for you, right? Although I didn't mention any tag here, right? So if I right click on it and do the inspect tab, so this will render me the code that I have written for this particular web page. And if you see here, I have HTML tag, I have head tag, I have body tag, inside which I have the text that I have written. Although the only text that I have written should be rendered, but what is being rendered? It renders the whole of HTML tag, head tag, and body tag. So these tags are not necessary for you. Browser adds for you. What each tag does, we'll discuss about it. So if you talk about the HTML tag itself, it is like the basic tag. Even if you don't add it, the browser will add for you, right? So HTML tag is the whole code in which it is enclosing bunch of tags, right? This is the basic tag. Under HTML you have another tag, which is head tag. Now, what does this head tag actually includes is it includes the metadata. So what is the metadata? It could be, the information about the web page, which is not necessary very important information, but it doesn't get rendered here, right? It is somewhere hidden or something that is not shown on a web page. It is shown somewhere else. For example, if you see here, I can add one more tag inside the head tag. Head tag has multiple tags, and each one of them does what it does is it displays a specific sort of information, right? To render that, just to give an example, you can use this particular tag known as title tag. And if I write it here title tag, and if I go it here and write something, so if you see here currently, what this thing shows is, if you go here, so what is being shown is index.html, right? You cannot see html.html, but if I close few tabs, maybe you can. Oh, you can't. So anyway, yeah, now you can, right? So index.html is there, right? Now to change that thing, I can change it. I can put in title anything. In fact, the VS Code itself tells you, give an example, the reference, give what this particular tag does. The title element represent the document's title or name. Author should use titles that identify the documents. So whatever is being shown on the top of your tab, right? The tab that you are opening is the title tag. So I can change this. I can say, okay, web dev workshop. Right now, if I refresh it, you need to refresh it every time you do some changes to get reflected. Now if you see, it is web dev workshop. In fact, if I hover over it, it shows me the whole thing, right? So this is the use of title tag. Here I would suggest you, you should get to know about one more tag, which is known as metadata tag. Very important tag, right? So this also comes under the head tag. So bunch of other tags are there. You also have link tag, right? Which is used to add an external file to this particular web page. So I can, if I want to get the reference, if I want to add or import something from outside, here is where you add it. Metadata is usually used to do the SEO optimization. What is it, SEO optimization? Basically, let's say I want to go chatbot. Chatbot is a concept, right? What all chatbots you have? You have ChatGPT, you have Gemini, you have DeepSeek. All these chatbots are there. But if I just enter chatbot, what do you guess are going to come? What is going to come? Uh, yeah. So you have multiple chatbots, right? The concept of the chatbot, as you can see here, the first one that comes is chatbot.com, and then you have AWS chatbot, right? It is explaining the thing. We'll take a better example. Let's say if I'm just writing t-shirt, right? If I just write t-shirt, right, the first thing that it suggests me is of BN Weaver, right? The next one, vistaprint.in. So all these people, how, the better the first page, the better you get is like, your particular brand should come at the first, right? Amongst the list of the web pages it renders, the Google renders. You have multiple websites, right? Multiple pages itself, and each page renders some brands, right? So your goal as a businessman should be, okay, bhai, my whenever somebody writes t-shirt, only Red Wolf should come, nothing else should come, right? This is how do I dominate? How does Mintra knows? Okay, bhai, my the brand Mintra itself is coming, not the other brand. You have multiple brands. So how did Mintra worked on it? Okay, bhai, they said, okay, bhai, if somebody writes T-shirt, somebody write pant, right? Our brand should come at the first compared to any other brand. To render this thing, what you do is this thing known as SEO optimization. Search for it. It is search engine optimization. And what you do, you play with the Google's web crawler. Again, a jargon, right? What it does is basically whenever you type something, Google web crawler, will go through all the websites. It will go through all the websites and find which is the most relevant to the user search, and it will list it at the first. And then Red Wolf in this case is the most relevant for the web's users. I mean the Google's web crawler, right? After that, Mintra is there. After that, the this particular brand is there. The snitch is there, right? So to get there, you add these things here in metadata. You might say here, okay, bhai, t-shirts, best t-shirts, all this thing. The way you might know about tags, right? If you are adding a particular post on Instagram, you write, or YouTube or anything, you add few tags which are relevant to that particular video. You'll let's say if it's a cooking video, I'll write cooking, amazing cooking, and all these things, whatever required, right? If you are writing about blogging, so all this thing, writing and all the relevant tags you will add. So the more you add, obviously it is very complex to get into the first one or second one. It's just not about the tags, but you get the idea. So metadata actually allows you to do SEO optimization. That's about metadata. Obviously we're not going to use it, so hopefully this is clear. um, let's talk about the next tab. Now, in fact, if I save this thing, head and title, right? I have added all these tags, and it shows HTML head and body, right? So although I didn't added body, but it got added, so it will check for the difference. Okay, what these three tags should be there. So even if I remove all of them and save it again and render the web page again, so these three tags are there by default. So these tags will remain no matter what, because browser renders it. And if you add it, let's say I have added in head tag the title tag itself, and now head tag doesn't has anything. But now if I refresh it and I click on head tag, it has a title tag and which contains my title, right? So this is the thing. So you don't add anything, it adds by default. You add something, it will add it. That's it. So that's about the head tag. Then you have body tag, which even if you don't add it, it doesn't matter for the web page. It will add it. But this is where you write most chunk of your code. Whatever the structure you want to represent, whatever the structure you want to present, that is being rendered or that is being written in this body tag. So body tag encloses all of your main code or whatever is being shown on the web page, not on the web tab or something like that. And here I'll just say you, okay, bhai, the thing that we are trying to create is this particular landing page of Zerodha. So if you see the Zerodha landing page, it's pretty nice web page, like a very decentest web page. If you see here, they have bunch of buttons on the top, sign up about products, pricing, and support. Yeah, this image, you have something written. So we are just trying to create only this particular part, not the below part. Obviously, this also including this logo that they have. You might see here there is a specific shadow that is being created by this particular top bar, right? So we'll all try to replicate as creating this particular web page. But to create this exact web page, you need to know both HTML and CSS. So today we are just going to create the structure of it, and to add the styling on top of it will do after we learn some important properties of CSS, right? That's how we are going to do it. Now going back to our this thing slide, we are done with HTML head, title, and body, and now we have very important tag. So let me just remove it, because even if I remove it, it doesn't matter, right? The important tag is div tag, right? So what is it? What does it do? Let's see. So if I write div, right, and whenever you are creating a tag, you must close it. even if you don't, it doesn't matter, right? The HTML will render on its own most likely, right? But later it's a good practice to actually enclose the tags, because later when you are going to learn the React won't allow you to create any tag that is not closed. So ensure that whenever you are creating the tag, you close it. So now let's say in div tag, I'm writing something. Let's say I'm writing the same thing that I have written earlier, that is hello world. And if I re-render the web page again, it is showing me exactly the same thing, right? So the question is, what extra thing does this particular tag do that I can just write hello world directly right this way, right? So it also does the same thing. And how is this thing different from this thing? So let's try to find this thing out. So if I add one more tag, and if I say hi there, right, what did I do? I added the first div tag and closed it with some text, and it was rendered. It was exactly the same thing as if if I remove this particular div tag, it was rendering the same thing. Now I've added another tag, which is the hi there tag. Right now, if I render the web page again, there is something different from what was done earlier, right? Can you spot the difference here? If I remove this thing here, if I add this thing, these two things, let's say hello world and hi there, right? And if I remove everything and I took it line by line, hello world के भाई whatever is being all is being used by this particular div tag. So this is the advantage of the div tag, where you want to create a particular component only, right? It has no special meaning attached with it beside okay, but it takes the whole of the division instead of rendering it side by side. And div is interchangeably used by another tag, which is called span tag. What does span tag do is, if you replace this div tags with span tags, right? I'll just remove everything. I'll write span, and if I write something hi there, and if I refresh this particular web page, it's exactly same thing. So let us add some more tags and check now. Hello. Right now, if I refresh it, there is something different. It is something different from the div tag itself. What it did is basically it says, okay, bhai, no matter even if you write and close it with something else, I'll just take the amount of space that I'm used for, right? Apart from that, once this is done, any other tag that is coming below me or after me can come beside me, right? I'm not going to take the whole division as div tag was using. I'll just take the amount of space that is required for me, and I'll leave the rest for the next tag to use it. So the question is, I can do the same thing this way also, right? Hello world, right? So it also does the same thing. It also bring, if I keep adding more things, right? More things, it'll just bring it side by side. So what is the use case of dev span in specific? Obviously there is no specific use case for this one, and it is also not used a lot, right? Div tag itself is used. The functionality you are trying to achieve here, you want things to be side by side. You can achieve the same thing with div plus some functionalities of CSS. So this is not really required. Maybe the person who has created HTML tag at that time, he thought, okay, well, it is better to structure it this way, where div is doing something, span is doing something. It's a good question for if you're in +2 or intermediate, you have learned HTML. So what is the difference between div and span? It's a particular question that comes almost always, right? So hopefully this is you understood the difference between div and span. Div is very important, so I'll just go back to that particular tag and I'll start from there, right? So div tag, what it does is basically it takes the whole of the space. I can do one more thing here. I can say to know, okay, bhai, if you want to check, okay, bhai, how do I know, okay, bhai, it takes the whole space? Maybe every tag I'm introducing, it is just going to the next line. How do you know? Okay, but it takes the whole space. Here, if you want to know, you can add a background color and check ke bhai, how much space it is going to take, right? To do so, in div tag, you can add this thing called style. What style is a property. What do you mean with the property? Style property, as I said you earlier, you have bunch of tags, you have bunch of attributes, and each attribute has a property and a value. What you have, sir, in HTML and CSS, you have bunch of tags, you have div, span, everything, right? I'll just explain it better. You have tags. Each tag has an attribute, multiple attributes in fact, and it will change with it's not like, style is a property. Style is obviously a universal property that can be used with every tag, right? I might be confusing a little bit because what I'm saying is tags are the things like HTML, head, title, body, a p tag. All these are the tags. The thing that you add with the tag, right, to achieve some sort of a functionality, which might be specific to that particular tag or can be, something which is common, that is called attributes. So style here is called attribute. So I'll just add an example here. Example, style is an attribute, and what you write inside style is like, the properties and the values of the style. So let's not get there. We'll when we learn CSS, we'll learn there, right? So just to add, background color, what you can do is you can add this thing, background color, and here you can just add the color you want to add. So background hyphen color colon red. Right now, if I refresh it, what it has is, the whole thing gets red, and not just, the hello world. On the other hand, if you see this one, if I add the same thing here, right, if I add the same thing here, if I add the same thing, some other color, black, and if I refresh it, it takes the whole thing. Obviously the text is not visible because black is overwhelming it. So I'll just add something else, not white, so green. So if you see it here, it takes the whole division. What if I change this div with a span? What do you think? How much amount of color it's going to take? Obviously, as you expected, it is only going to take the amount of space it is being used. If I add more text to it, what will happen, sir? It will just extend. Okay, but I just need, okay, whatever the last text that you have written, I'll just take that much amount of space. On the other hand, div will take the whole thing, right? So don't worry about the style property. Style attribute, will learn about it, right? The next one we have is the center tag. But before we go to center tag, if you see the Zerodha web page, you have this. Let's just start implementing this Zerodha web page, right? To implement this, we have an image on top of it. Now, let's say if you want to put some image on your HTML web page, what you have to do is you have to get an image first of all, obviously, right? So I can open this particular image itself. So what you can do is save this image as, and save in the same folder as you have created your web page or your HTML file in. So it is web dev, and I'll save it here, right? A web page, if you open this bar, can see the image already inside this particular folder. Now to use this thing, and if I want to render this on my HTML web page that I'm trying to create, I think I didn't saved it. So if I refresh it, it's gone. Now to use this thing, all you have to do is you have to use img tag along with source attribute. Mm, structure of the web page. I'll be explaining the structure of the web page, later after this particular, after I explain these things. At the end, we'll add to it because it is mostly theoretical part, right? So the image tag has the source as the attribute, and in the source attribute, what you have to do is add the path for your image, right? In my case, the path for my images, either you can do is like, if it is in the same folder, you can just write the name of it, landing.png, and if you close it and if you re-render it, I can see the image on my web page, although it is taking a lot of width and space, width and height, because whatever the original width and height of the image is there, that is being shown. To reduce this, you can add another attribute, which is called width attribute, and I can add it here with 600 pixel 600 property as a value. And now if I refresh it, it gets reduced, right? So this is the thing. So this is the thing with image. But you might see here it is not really in the center, although it is horizontally centered. Even it is not even horizontally centered. If I open it like in the full screen, it is not horizontally centered. Now if I want to horizontally center it and vertically center it, I have to enclose this particular image in a center tag. So this is where your center tag comes into the picture. You just need to do, all you need to do is center, right? It shows red because now this particular tag, center tag, is now obsolete. It's not used anymore, but you can use it, and anything you put inside center tag will be centered of the web page. So I'm going to put this particular image inside the center tag. Now if I refresh it, what happens? It comes into the center of the web page, right? So this is the advantage. Now if I want to bring it vertically down, I can add few brick lines here. You might know about this tag as well. So what this tag does is br tag. It takes whatever the division is there, it goes to the next line. So if I refresh it after entering it, it goes little bit down. I can add more br tags to go it more down, right? If I save it and refresh it, it goes more down. I can keep adding, and I also reduce the width. It's too less, right? Acha. Right. So now this looks good, I guess. So this is what the image tag does, and anything you put inside the center tag, it will be horizontally centered. Like if I want to, let's say, if I am writing something, I'll just write the thing and then I'll add center along with it. So if I write in div hello, right, and if I refresh the web page, hello is coming here. Now if I want to center it, all I have to do is take this whole thing and put it inside the center. Now it will come in horizontally centered. So whatever that particular tag is there, how much amount of space it is going to take, center tag will put it in the center. So till now we have covered HTML head, title, body, div, span, center is there. Now you have H1 to H6 tags. What does it mean? It basically means, okay, bhai, if you want to put some sort of heading, whatever text I'm writing, whether it is in div, span, or any tag, it is coming in plain format. But what if I want to put some heading? You can use this particular tag, which is the H1 tag, and if you put any text on it, web dev, and if you save it and refresh it, this will come as the heading. Now you can keep changing this. I'm putting this in H1. If I put this in H2, right, this will come little, I mean the font size gets decreased, and along with the emphasis of it, if you see here, it is way more bold compared to this particular thing. Now if I keep reducing it, if I go from H2 to H3, right, so H3 has a lesser space, so you get the idea, right? So H1 to H3, if I write H6 directly, so H6 is very small, maybe as small as the normal text, but just with some little, it has some weight on it, on the text. So this is the difference between all the tags of H1 to H6. Still, again, I'm saying you, this tags are also not used a lot, not used at all, I would say, because what you do, the same functionality that you are seeing here, okay, but it is just big, very big, right? So you can do that with CSS. Wrap your text around div tag and then play along with CSS. You can make it big, you can add some emphasis on it, you can make it italic, bold, everything you can do it. So this is not required, right? So once this is done, then you have p tag. Again, nothing special, right? P tag, it doesn't do any specific functionality. right? It is same as some div tag, and p attributes actually to the paragraph tag. So the person who has created HTML at that time maybe have thought that people are going to use the tags in this way, so it is better to be structured. Other way around, it doesn't have any specific functionality, so it's not really required for us to learn this one. Then you have a tag, which is essential tag, right? This tag is used a lot. What a tag does is, if you see, go to Zerodha, and if I click on sign up for free, right? If I click on it, I am, redirected to a new web page, right? How does this redirection happens? This happens because this particular button that I'm clicking, it has a link associated with it. So whenever I click on it, this link, whatever this particular button is hiding under, right, that particular web page will open. So even if I hover over it, you can see on the bottom left that it shows zero.com slash open account, right? So if I click on it and open it, it opens the new web page, right? So this thing we can also implement. Let's do it. So if I click on a tag, and if I go to index.html, I think I didn't save it. Now everything is gone, nothing is being rendered. If I write something, click on YouTube, right, right, nothing is being actually shown, right? Now to add that particular link, even if I click on it, nothing is happening. To add that particular link that it is going to hide, you can add one more attribute here, which is called link tag, which is called href tag, right? What href tag does is, it adds the URL for your web page that you want the user to redirect for. So in my case, let me just add youtube.com, right? Now, if I go back to my web page and render it again, and if I click on YouTube, it gets redirected to my youtube.com, right? So this is what it does. And it also has some basic functionalities. Initially, you might have seen it was in some other color, right? When I hover over on top of it, the color got changed. Let me just show it again. I'll add one more thing, one more a tag. No, let me change this thing. But you get the idea, right? You have different colors. The web pages that you have already visited, the color will change from blue to purple, right? And again, if you hover over it, usually it should change the color. I'm unsure why it is not changing here, but you can add the functionality here, Kebhai. When I'm hovering on top of it, some color should be there. When I click on it, some other color should come, right? If the user has already visited the web page, as the Google shows, right? If I click on here NDTV, right, I visit very often, so that's why this particular the color of this particular web page has changed from normal blue to purplish, right? If you see the other web pages, it is still blue, but this particular web page, it has changed to purple. So this is the functionality you add with a tag, right? So that's all about a tag. And usually, again, this thing you might never see. It is all about, mostly it is buttons which you use to redirect the user to some other web page. So we are going to also use a button, right? But we are not going to add any a tag in this particular making of this particular web page, because we just want to implement the structure and the styling of it, nothing fancy, nothing JS or something like that, right? Hopefully this is clear. Now once this is done, you have input tag. What input tag does is, if you go to ChatGPT or google.com, right? If you go to ChatGPT itself, and if I click on login, right, I don't know why it is not logging in. Let me go to some alternate, maybe whatever. So you might have seen the login page, where you enter your username and password. So that is your input tab. So here I can click on input, um, and if I enclose it and do nothing, and if I refresh the web page, it has this thing, not really good, really good styled, but it is something, where I can enter something, some my credential or something like that. So every web page will have this thing. So input tag is very necessary for you, because input tag is almost used in every building of any website, any basic website, because you want to take the user's credential and store in the database. So hopefully this is clear. Apart from that, the last thing, or the last two three things, button tag is there. Button, what it does is basically you have button tag, right? And here you can add some functionality, for example sign up, right? And if I refresh it, it shows me the buttonish type of thing. It is not same as simple hello or something like this. And if I hover over it, the color also changes. Although this is very ugly, because we are not going to use it, or nobody uses this. You add CSS functionality on top of it, and also you don't make the border black, which is there by default. Here also you can do this thing. When you click on the button, it gets redirected to some other web page. How do you do it? It is using JS. When you learn JavaScript, we'll learn about how can you make when I click on the button, it gets redirected to some other web page. So this is about the button tag. Then you have bold and italic tag. As the name itself suggests, what it does is, if I write something in B tag, hi there, right? And if I refresh it, it gets boldified, right? So the emphasis of the text is very high. And if I write in I, which stands for italic tag, and if I refresh it, that gets in italic, right? So this is the difference, although the same thing can also be done by CSS. So if I go with this particular whole list of tags that we have covered just now, the only one that is really required for you to know is the div tag, uh, the image tag, because it is still used, the div and image still used in React as well. Yeah, you should know input tag and you should know button tag. That's all you need to create a good web page, right? Nothing else. And these things gets added even if you don't add it, so it doesn't matter, right? Hopefully that is clear. We'll take a checkpoint here. Do you guys have any doubt till now? We'll start building with the Zerodha landing page right away, right? So I see no doubts, no queries. So I'll just start building this particular web page. How do you build? Very simple. What I see here is you have the logo on top of it. On the top bar, what I have is a logo, which is nothing but an image. I can in fact download it. So I suggest you to download this along. So if I go to I'm already in my web dev browser thing, and I can save this logo here, right? Because this is what will be required. And then you have bunch of buttons. You have sign up button, about button, product, pricing, support, all this thing. And then I see a image that we have already downloaded. And then you have bunch of lines which is invest in everything. And then you have another line which is, this line is compared to this particular line is big, right? So we'll add this particular structure as well. And then finally you have some button which has sign up for free. So I'll try to just create the structure of it today, right? How do you do it? Very simple. So I suggest open your VS Code and then start coding along. You might not see this particular buttons that we have just seen when we actually do the full screen, because this get hided, because you cannot fit most of the buttons in such a small space. That is the reason they have hided it, right? So we are going to implement what is there when you do the full screen, not the one when you do the uh, when I actually minimize it, right? So what I see, the first thing that I see is this particular logo. To implement that logo, currently what do I have, sir? I have nothing. If I save this thing and if I refresh my web page, there is nothing there. But to add this particular logo, all I need to do is I have to do image src, as I've said you earlier, right? And then I'll give the name, I'll give the path for this particular this particular logo, and the name is logo.svg. I'll just add it here. and that's it. I think this should be enough for you to have the image in it. But the thing is, as you could see, it is taking a lot of space. To reduce the space, what you can do is you can add the width property, and you can give the property value of the width, which is 100 in my case. I think this looks good enough, maybe 150, right? So this looks good enough. Now once this is done, this is done. Alternatively, let me tell you, let's say I'm giving the path of an image which is not present, right? This is also a very common thing. Let's say landing.png or logo.svg, or you have the bad internet connection where you're trying to install or take the image from the browser, right? So let's say logos.svg is there. I'm trying to use that one, but it is not present here. So now if I refresh the web page, that is not there. Although it is going to take the exact amount of width that I've mentioned, but it shows something like this. So in that case, as you might have seen in the Instagram, on the Instagram as well, if you have the poor internet connection, it rather than showing the image, it will show, okay, what does that image contains, right? It will show this particular logo, and then it will render the text of particular image, okay, what it has. So you can also say here, if you want to add the text, okay, if my internet connection is good, if my path of the image is correct, just show the image. If that is not there, then you can give an alternate text, and guess what, you have to just add alt attribute along with some text that you want to show. So I can add here logo of Zerodha. Right, now if I refresh this one, so the image, that first thing what happens is basically it tries to fetch this particular image logos.svg, and it expects it to be in the same folder, but it is not there. So what it does is it says, "Ke bhai, is there some alternative text that user has mentioned?" Yes. What did he mention? Logo of Zerodha. So I'll just going to show that particular text. So in the other way around, let's say if I give the correct path, right? If I give the correct path, and if I refresh the web page, it shows the image and hides this particular thing. A good thing to know, okay, bhai, in case if you don't want your image to be rendered, or you're expecting a poor connection from the user itself, and he cannot render the image, then whatever the alternative text is there, it will be shown, because the image rendering is comparatively very heavy compared to just rendering the text. The first time whenever you open any website, the first thing that loads is your text, the HTML part, and then it will load your CSS followed by JS, and even JS gets loaded with the time. So if you go to Twitter or Instagram, and you keep scrolling, and if you do a little bit scrolling, I'll just go on my LinkedIn and show. Uh, right, so I don't have all the components, all the images or everything rendered here already, but if I keep scrolling, the LinkedIn will generate more and more posts for me. So these things will keep getting added and added as I keep rendering it. So let's say if somebody has scrolled somewhere and he has already loaded the text, but all of a sudden he couldn't load the image, because the where image is stored versus where your HTML code is stored are different places. Mostly it is different. It could be same as well, right? Where your image is stored and where your HTML code is stored are different places, and your HTML code is usually loaded with bare minimum of internet connection. But let's say that the HTML is loaded for this particular post, but this particular image is not loaded. So in that case, you can show this particular logo, this particular text, right? So hopefully that is clear. Now once this is done, as I said you earlier, you have bunch of buttons here. So sign up, about, product, pricing, and support. So let me add it here. Um, and before that, let us try to put everything in dev. Whatever we are going to do, we'll do in dev, right? Whatever we want to write, we'll write in dev. So this is not going to affect our web page with anything. It is just like this particular div tag will take the whole thing, right? Now if I want to add this particular things, all I can do is I can add div tag, right? If I write sign up, what is going to happen? If I load it, it is going to go to the next line, right? So I cannot use div in my case. Although when you learn CSS, you will get the idea, even though I'm using div, I'll bring it on the first division itself, not on the second division. But for now, let's, instead of using div, we'll convert this into span, right? So what does span do? It will just take the amount of space that is required and not the whole thing, right? So if I replace everything with span, and if I refresh my web page, not this one, this one, so this now comes side by side. I have also bunch of other this looks very ugly, although you are expecting to be somewhere here, but it is here. But when we'll do CSS, we'll bring it exactly at the same place where you are expecting it to be. Let's add bunch of other buttons. You have about button, you have about, you have products, you have pricing, you have support. And now if I refresh it, pretty ugly. You expect it to be at the at the right hand side of your web page, but it is side by side concurrently. But we'll change it when we learn CSS. But this particular part is done. Right now, once this is done, the next thing we have is this particular image. Although you might see there is a thin line which differentiates between this particular bar and this thing, but we'll get it when we'll do CSS, right? To get this particular image, I already have this image. In case you don't have, you can just do right click and save this particular image in your folder. Right now, to get this particular image, all I have to do is I'll put the image tag, I'll put source thing, and I'll here give my image path. So in my case, the image path is landing.png. Right now, if I refresh it, again it takes a lot of space. So let me reduce the width for this particular image to make it look better. Although this thing again can be done, everything that you style can be done using CSS, so you don't need to worry about it. So if I give here 150, 400, what is happening, sir? Acha, the thing is, the span says कि भाई this particular support thing, I'm just going to take this one. So whatever the next thing that is going to come will come beside me and not behind me. So what you can do here is you can encapsulate this particular thing, the image tag, with a div, right? So it takes the whole of division instead of getting relied on this thing. But again, this particular div tag is going to come here itself. Right now it is going to go onto the next line. It is really having less width, so I'll just increase it more. You can add more. Right now it looks better. You can reduce, I guess. Right now, to center it, right? We have already seen how to center it. All I need to do is encapsulate this particular image tag with a center tag. The reason why you see the reddish thing, right, squiggly on top of it, is because the center tag is no more used. It has become obsolete with HTML version 5. HTML version is every few years they release some version of HTML saying which new tags are introduced and which tags has to be obsoleted, right? So this is the dev center tag. I have centered this particular image. I didn't save it again, and let me refresh it. Now it has centered, but you might see that there is a little bit space in between from here to here, right? So we can add few BR tags to go to the next line, next line, next line, and so on. So I'll go here at my span, I'll add BR tag, and if I refresh it, I think I need to add more and reduce the width a little bit. Right, so this looks better. Now the next thing we are left out is with this particular thing and this thing. Notice, as you could see here, invest in everything is boldified, and it is also bigger compared to the other text that is being written here. To get this functionality, this particular thing, you can use h1 tag or h2 tag or any tag that actually fits this particular size. You have h1 tag, you can write here invest in everything, and if I go here, okay sir, so you have this thing, but it's not centered. We'll get it centered, but before we do that, we can add this particular thing as well. So now I'm going to use a simple div tag instead of using in the fancy tags, right? Because this particular text is same. So now this is also done. Then the last thing that we have is a button. So button is also same. All you have to do is button, and if I close it and I can copy this thing, sign up for free, and if I refresh it, I have this thing very ugly, but we can add few BRs to make it little pretty, right? Right now I have this thing. Now to center the whole thing, I can either do individual tags I can do and center it, or what I can do is this from here to here, like these three tags has to be centered, right? So what I can do is I'll go here, add my center tag, I'll open my center tag here, and I'll close at the bottom of it. So what this center tag will do, everything that is there in between, it will centered it, right? So we are done with the basic HTML structure for our web page, right? It's very not very similar, I would say, but yeah, okay, the structure is done. These functionalities where you see, the color of the buttons are very unique, very aesthetic, and all this thing, that this will be done in the next class when we discuss about CSS. So that marks the end for today's class. So do you guys have any other queries? So next week, most likely we'll discuss about a few other things, right? We have created the zero the HTML structure. We'll talk about the CSS. We'll talk about mostly, the colors, backgrounds, and positioning of the web page elements. This is the most important thing. Here we'll discuss about, how multiple components can be created in a particular web page, and that will mark the end for, the HTML CSS part, and hopefully we'll start with JS next week. Mm. Do you guys have any query? Any questions? All right. If there are no other queries, we'll end the class here. Brush up with the basic CSS, and you can also, I'll add few other tags that are required to be learned, right? So you can add as your assignment and learn those tags before you come for the next class. I'll see you in the next class. Bye bye.